Hi everyone and Happy New Year. Welcome to Yoga with Heini. I'm Heini and this week I'm going to lead you through a slow practice for opening through the front body. During the month of January we are slowly building our backbending practice, and this week we start by opening the front line with slightly longer poses. Let's get started. The only prop for this week's practice that you might need is some kind of a strap or a belt, or you could use a scarf or a towel instead. But especially if you know that reaching for the legs behind you is a bit tricky, then have something that you can use as a strap, as a yoga belt, somewhere next to your mat. I think that's all props we need. We're going to start from lying down on the belly. So when you are ready, come lie down on the front, and just in case, have your belt, your strap somewhere nearby where you can easily reach for it if you are planning to use it. And then as you come lie down on your belly, I suggest bringing hands first under the head. So you have a bit of a cushioning for the head, so you could lean your forehead onto your hands. And just take a few slightly deeper breaths in and out here, just letting the front line find the mat. You can breathe down to the belly, breathe out to the ribs, and just let the heavy pelvis, the front of the hips, sink down towards the mat. And then after those few breaths, still lying down on the belly, your head resting on your hands, start to reach your legs towards the back of the mat, keeping them heavy on the mat, on the floor, but like you're trying to reach the legs just a bit longer, making a bit more distance, a bit more space between the feet and the head. You might rock the pelvis a bit from side to side, but trying to just reach the legs long. And this might help in creating space in the lower back when we start to slowly go into some back bend. So as we go through all back bends, rather than thinking about hinging from the back, think about reaching your back, your legs, your whole body long. So trying to look for a long, kind of even arch through the whole body. So it's not just from the back. I know we're talking about back bends, but it's your whole body going into these poses. So a couple more reaching back movements with the legs. And you could also start to think about reaching head away from the feet if you find that idea more helpful. And then again, check that your pelvis is heavy on the mat. Take another breath in and out. Feel that length going through your whole back, your legs, your whole body. And then we are going to now bend the left leg first. So bend your left leg and then reach your left hand to your left foot or toes or ankle. And this is where you could use the strap as a help. If you feel that the arm is maybe a bit short today, you could use a strap or a belt around the left foot and then hold the strap with your hand. So either way feels good for you. And we start to slowly open the front of the left leg. And now what I would encourage here is to very, very gently think about pressing the front of the left hip down towards the mat. It's not a very intense movement. Just think about grounding down through the front of the left hip, the front of the left leg. So we're kind of starting to activate the left buttock, starting to activate through the back line as we're opening the front line. And then you have an option to either stay here, just enjoying that opening at the front of the left hip, the front of the left thigh, Or if you want, exhale, very gently draw in through the lower belly. And then inhale, slowly lift the chest slightly off the mat and keep your right arm kind of in front of you. So the right arm is bent in front of you. So you can press down through the right palm, through the right forearm. So it's maybe almost parallel to the front of the mat. And breathing here. Still, you might gently pull the left foot towards the left buttock and also keep gently pressing down through the front of the left hip. If this feels too strong in the back, you're very welcome to bring your head, your chest down earlier. We're going to spend here a few more breaths. You might also slightly, very gently press down through the right leg, so that leg that is extended on the mat. Let's take one more breath in and out. And then slowly bring your chest, your head down if you're feeling, or if you have your chest lifted, and then slowly release that left leg down. If you have a belt there, you can just put the belt aside. Bring both hands under the head, and you could rock the pelvis a bit from side to side. Just feeling both sides heavy on the mat, heavy on the floor. Take another breath in and out. Also check how the back feels. This will help you when we do this on the other side. So now, with the next couple of breaths, slowly bend your right knee. And you could leave your left hand under the head as you reach right hand, right arm behind you. Again, you could reach for the right foot with your hand, or you could use the strap, use the belt here if you want. And then just see how this feels first to be here, keeping the chest, keeping the head down, and slowly pressing down through the front of the right hip. So again, feeling just maybe a subtle activation through the right buttock. Nothing too massive, just a gentle activation. The activation on the back side helps to open through the front line. And then, like on the first side, you have the option to keep your head, keep your chest down, or exhale, slightly draw in through the lower belly. Just a very subtle action. And then as you inhale, send the breath towards the chest and peel the chest slightly off the mat. Again, keeping the left arm in front of you as a support. And that starts to build a bit more activation through the back side of the spine as well. Again, check how you feel along the back. If you start to feel any pain, then come down earlier. And maybe here we have now more attention to check on the neck as well. So you could keep looking down, keep the neck in one line with your back, or you could look forward. That might change how you feel in the back. You can try both options. But keep that long arch, that lengthening through the back in mind here. So you could just slightly think about reaching the crown of the head away from that right leg, that right knee that we have bent behind us. Take another couple of breaths in and out wherever you are in your pose. And then if you have your chest, your head off the mat, first slowly bring them down. And then if you're still holding onto the right leg, let go. Bring your both legs down. You can bring both hands under the head. And again, just rock the pelvis a bit. Kind of wiggle the pelvis from side to side. Send the breath down towards the belly. And then we're going to still stay on the belly. But now step your both hands kind of under the shoulders, quite close to the shoulders, and draw the elbows towards your side. So arms are quite close to your body. And now first, before we lift into a cobra, think about reaching head away from the feet, reaching both feet away from the head. So you have that long line through the whole body. Exhale, slightly draw in through the lower belly, press down through the front of the hips. And then as you inhale again, send the breath towards the chest. Start to peel the chest off the mat, coming into your cobra pose. You could keep it low down, a baby cobra, maybe gently pressing down through the hands. Or if you want to go further up, you can start to extend the arms more, lift the chest off the mat, higher up. But keep that long line from head to the feet, wherever you are. And make sure it's still easy to breathe. Breathing a bit more to the chest, so we have that subtle support through the lower belly. Take another breath in and out. Remember, you can stay very low down. And then exhale, release down, bring your chest down. And now tuck your toes under. We're going to lift onto hands and knees, and keeping the toes tucked under, lean pelvis back into child's pose. You're going to let the head lean down. Next inhalation, rock forward towards the hands. You might open the front line a bit. And then exhale, pelvis coming again towards the feet into child's pose, keeping the toes tucked under. Same couple more times, rocking forward, opening the front line a bit, but feel the resistance on the front side. So keeping the belly drawn in. And again, rocking the pelvis back. Child's pose. Once more. Shift the weight forward. Maybe coming into a full cobra. And then back onto hands and knees. So now keep your hips about on top of your knees. We're going to come into melting heart, and you can choose to leave the toes tucked under or release the toes at this point. So hips about on top of the knees, step hands even further forward, and then exhale, release the chest down. And you could lean your chin or forehead down to the mat. Or like we did before, you could bring your hands, your forearms under the head. But now here, the intention is to release the chest down. So building a bit of back bend, focusing especially on the upper spine. So melting the heart, melting the chest down towards the mat. And you might have arms bent, you might keep arms extended. But this is quite a big opening in the shoulders as well. So if you feel one shoulder is a bit different than the other, you might bend one arm and leave the other arm extended. I personally have a bit of a difference between the shoulders. So I feel that I can keep the left arm extended, but the right arm often needs to bend. So feel free to explore different shapes in the arms. You could also change the arms the other way around if you want. We still have a few more breaths here. So think about releasing the chest down. Still keeping the hips up. Breathe in and out. And then slowly bend the arms. Shift the weight onto your arms. So you can now lift yourself back onto hands and knees. And then just move a bit from side to side. Let the shoulders move. Let the hips move a bit. You could turn head from side to side. And now let's do a few disco cats here. So cat-cows, but with a bit more sideways movement as well. So start to circle the hips, circle the pelvis, opening through one side, shifting the weight to hands, then opening through the other side and leaning more towards the pelvis. So it is like cat-cow. So we start to round and arch the back, but also going through the sides, opening through the left and the right side. Let your neck, your head move through these disco cats as well. And then from an easy place, change the direction. So continue circling between the knees and hands, but in the opposite direction. You decide how much you want to round and arch the back. Or maybe you want to focus more on opening through the sides. Let's do a couple more circles, but it's movement for the shoulders, it's movement for the hips, movement for the whole spine from tail up to the neck. And then slowly let those movements calm down. Bring your weight to the center onto all fours. And from here, we're going to step the right foot forward close to the hands. And you can either tuck the left foot toes under or keep them untucked. We're going to inhale, lift the back, lift the arms up. And we're not going to come into like a traditional low lunge here. We're trying to keep the pelvis more on top of that left knee. So we have more kind of right angles going through the knees than leaning forward. And now just slightly tuck your tailbone under. So just tiny bit, think about tucking the tail under. So we have that activation again through the front line. And from here, you can either keep your arms up, reaching up to the ceiling, or bring hands behind the head. That might help to release the shoulders, the neck a bit. You might even slightly lean your head onto your hands, opening through the front of the chest and shoulders. And we keep the tailbone tucked under, but just tiny bit. You might lean weight towards that right foot. So we are creating an opening through the front line, trying to get to the left thigh especially. And we don't need to necessarily lean a lot forward to feel quite strong sensation. Keep breathing here. Try to keep the shoulders and neck soft. And then you can either keep your head up, or for the next few breaths, slowly bring your chin towards the chest, but still keep the action in the lower body going on. So still keep tucking the tail under, maybe slightly leaning the weight towards the right foot. But now creating an opening through the back of the neck. Sometimes when we do back bends, we start to feel a bit tension in the neck. So here you have a chance to release that tension a bit, stretch the neck a bit. And keep breathing. We're still looking for that opening around the front of the left thigh. Take another breath in and out. And then if you have your head leaning forward, inhale, release the head back up to the center, open the chest. And then slowly release the hands down. And now you can release tucking the tail. So now you're leaning more into like a low dragon lunge. You might adjust your front foot. And you have an option to stay here. So if this feels like a nice opening along the front line, maybe around the hips, you could stay here. I have a suggestion for a half squat. So if you rather now go and visit the inner thighs, tuck the left foot toes under, lift the left knee off the mat, And then walking the right foot more kind of between the hands, start to turn towards the long side of the mat and arriving into a half squat. So we have the right leg bent here in a squat, but we keep the left leg extended on the side. Now you could slide that left foot more towards the front of your mat so you feel comfortable, or well, manageable. Let's say manageable. This could be a very big stretch. So make sure you're not hurting in the knees, you're not hurting in the ankles or in the hips, although there might be a big stretch going on in the inner thighs especially. And you could lean onto your hands. If the right heel doesn't come on the mat, that's very fine. You could more bear the weight on your hands. And then I'll give you one more option. Either stay here or slide the right hand further out to the right side and then inhale, twist towards the left side, reaching the left arm up. So here we might be creating a bit more of an opening around the chest as well. It's quite intense pose, so make sure you choose the edge, the option that works for you today. And breathe. Now, we could think about turning the left foot toes up towards the ceiling if that feels manageable, but if that feels like it's just not happening today, don't force it. But we try to keep some activation through the legs so we're not collapsed down, and also activation through the core, a bit of lifting up. Take another breath in and out wherever you are. And then slowly, if you have that left arm up, release that twist, bring more weight onto your hands. And now lift the pelvis up and walk hands back to that right foot. So now we turn back to that lunge, and from the lunge, we step into downward dog. Release both legs behind you and give yourself a moment here to move the feet. Walk from one foot to the other. You can move the hips a bit. You could rock the whole pelvis from side to side. Also releasing the neck. Let the head drop down. Take another breath or two in and out. Downward dog gives a bit more opening for the back line. So a bit of counter posing here. And then you could either stay longer in this downward dog or add a little flow here. So if you want, inhale, come forward into plank, and then exhale, lower yourself all the way down onto the mat. You can release the toes. Inhale into cobra, like we've done cobras before. You can choose to stay lower down or lift higher up. Next exhalation, bring the chest back down. And then as you inhale, lift onto hands and knees and round the back into child's pose. So if you are in downward dog, come down onto knees and round the back for a moment into child's pose. Couple of breaths in and out. Good. And then come back onto hands and knees. We are going to go into the lunge on the other side. So now step your left foot to your hands so that your knee is about on top of the left ankle, about. And from there, as you inhale, lift your back, lift your arms up, open the chest. You can still adjust the feet so you feel stable, or adjusting the left foot. And with the right leg, you could keep the toes released, or you might tuck the toes under, see how your knees feel. And then slightly again, tuck your tailbone under. Think about just slightly scooping the pelvis under. And you could either keep the arms up or bring hands behind the head. That might release the shoulders. And if you feel that there's still more space, to open through the front of the right leg, you might slightly lean the weight onto the left foot. But it might be that you're feeling the pose is intense enough. Just staying where you are, where you started from. So if leaning forward makes the pose too intense, don't force it. I definitely feel it is really quite intense, opening through the front of the right thigh. So keep breathing. And then you have the option, if you want, you could exhale, bring chin towards the chest, surrounding the neck, a bit the upper spine. But still keep the actions in the lower body. Keep the tailbone slightly tucked under. And keep breathing. If poses get really intense, it's so easy to stop breathing. Take another few breaths in and out. Remember, bringing the head down is just an option. You're very welcome to keep the head upright. And then if you have your head down, inhale, bring your head, your neck back up. And then release the hands down onto the mat. So now leaning into that more traditional kind of low dragon, you can bring pelvis a bit further down. And you can adjust your front foot. And you have the option to stay here. If this feels like a good place now, you can skip the half squat and stay here. But especially if you did the half squat on first side, let's try it here as well. So now we would tuck the right foot toes under, lift the right knee off the mat, and start walking hands towards the long edge of the mat. Walk the left foot a bit more in the center, and then bend the left knee. Excuse me for turning my back to you. And you could adjust that right leg as well. It doesn't need to be straight on this side. It could come a bit more in front of you. And you can keep weight on your hands, let the pelvis come down. Maybe the left heel stays off the mat. So again, it could be a big, big opening here through the inner legs. If this is enough, stay here. Maybe keep more weight on the hands. Or if you want to add the twist, slide your left hand a bit more to the left side and then inhale, open the chest, and you could reach the right arm up. Maybe even look up. So opening through the front of the chest, but looking up is an option if that feels tense in the neck. You could also look down or just look in front of you. Keep breathing towards the chest, towards the front line, and keep the legs active. So legs are gently pressing down. We're not collapsed in the hips. The core is slightly lifting up. Take another breath in and out wherever you are. And then if you are in the twist, slowly release both hands down. And again, bring more weight onto your hands and lift your pelvis up. Turn back to the left foot into your runner's lunge. And once more, step into downward dog. You could pedal the feet again a bit. Shake the head. Move the hips from side to side. And same option here. Either stay in this downward dog. Enjoy that opening through the back line. Or add one more little flow here. So if you want, inhale forward to plank. And exhale to low plank. And all the way down onto the mat. You can release the toes. Then inhale towards the chest into one more cobra. Opening the front, coming into your back bend. Keep lengthening between the head and the feet. And then exhale, lower back down. And inhale, lift onto hands and knees. And into one more child's pose. So again, if you are in downward dog, bring knees down, lean pelvis to the feet into child's pose. This time, if you want, you could bring arms down next to the legs. That might release the shoulders. A few breaths in and out, counter pose for that opening in the front line. And then after your few breaths, from child's pose, walk the hands forward, come onto hands and knees, and then lower all the way back down onto the belly. Take a couple of breaths there, just rocking the pelvis, the hips from side to side. And then we are going to come lie down on our back. So we've done a lot of movements down towards the floor. Now let the front line open up towards the ceiling. And just take a moment first, lying down on the back. You could either extend your legs or you could keep the knees bent. See how your back feels now. And take a few breaths in and out. Just feel that freedom on the front side. And give yourself another couple of breaths to check how the back feels after those back bends. We've been mostly focusing on opening through the front, so it could be that you haven't even felt this a lot in your back. But we have been doing back bends, so take that into consideration. And then we have one more pose here before we do a longer resting pose. We're going to do an inverted caterpillar pose, so legs up towards the sky, up towards the ceiling. We have options though, so we start by hugging the knees in. And if this feels like it's enough for you now, you could stay here. Maybe just focus on that little gentle rounding in the lower back. Or you could reach, kind of lift your legs up towards the ceiling, just allowing counter opening along the back line. And you could do it here without any props, so maybe supporting legs with your hands at the back of the knees, maybe in the calves. Or if you have that strap, if you have that belt somewhere nearby, you could now bring the belt around your feet. So give support for the legs with the strap. And just enjoying that opening through the back line. It could be that your lower back, the back of the pelvis, comes off the mat, and that is very, very fine. Could be that you feel this more in the backs of the legs. If it's really intense, maybe try bending the knees a bit, soften in the knees, see if that changes anything. Keep shoulders soft. So if you are using a strap, I suggest walking hands as close to the feet as possible along the strap. And that often helps you relax the arms, the shoulders as well. And just breathe here in and out. Notice where along your back line you feel this pose now after the openings for the front line we've done. Let's take another few breaths in and out. You might move the feet a bit as well. Good, and if you want to stay longer, feel free to do that. I suggest that with the next few breaths, we would slowly bring the feet, bring the legs down. If you have a strap there, put the strap aside. And then bring your feet, your legs down And we're going to come into our resting pose, Shavasana pose. It could be knees bent. You're very welcome to keep the knees bent, maybe leaning knees, thighs against each other. Or if you want, you could extend your legs all the way down. See how that feels. When you have found your resting pose, I suggest bringing hands onto the belly, or one hand on the belly, the other hand somewhere at the bottom of the ribs. And let yourself breathe. Let your breaths move towards that front line. Maybe giving a bit more of an opening. Or just a release. Often we're too focused on stretching, creating a big stretching sensation. But more looking for a release now. You might even close your eyes for a moment. Give yourself another 5 to 10 breaths here. Let the breath soften as well. Let yourself just observe the breath rather than trying to control. When you arrive at the end of your 5 to 10 breaths, you can choose to continue your resting pose. You can stay in your Shavasana pose longer if you want. Or if you feel ready to slowly close the practice, open your eyes, wiggle your fingers, your toes. You could reach arms overhead along the floor, reach the legs long, stretch the whole body long from hands down to the feet. Then from your back, roll down onto one side. It could be left or the right side. And then from your side, bring yourself up into a seat, into your own final seat. And that could be any easy pose, any easy seat where you could take a few more breaths in and out. If it's part of your practice, bring your palms together in front of the chest. And as always, at the end of the practice, thank yourself for bringing your body, your breath, your mind onto the mat, into your practice today. And I thank you all very much for joining in. Namaste. Thank you. Good. Thank you so much for joining in. I hope you feel very open along the front line now. If you enjoy the practice, please give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment below. Let me know how this practice went for you. And also, if there's anyone you think might enjoy the practice, might benefit from this practice, please share the video with them. It really helps the channel to grow. Good, Happy New Year, and I'll see you next week in the next video. Bye.